Regardless of how long it takes, even if it takes 10 years, I will defeat them.
The silent massacre. Who will save South Sudan?
Either criminals or alien, whatever they are within the country, and I can talk on behalf of Nairobi, they are not safe because we have our good officers doing a good job there and they'll be arrested.
No turning back on police crackdown, and your estate could be next.
Saving a child's heart. New lease of life for 5-year-old girl.
He was later executed in the year 1985 on 9th of July.
Nina haki angaliko na kiba nikufa aliwawa sababu.
Sorry, he was hanged. Family rejects report on 82 coup suspect.
This is KTN Prime with Yvonne Okwara and Wilson Buru.
A very good evening to you. Tonight, Kenya's neighbor to the northwest stands on the brink as campaigners accuse the international community of dragging its feet in saving the young nation.
Just 3 years after declaring independence from the north, South Sudan now faces what aid workers call the worst single atrocity since the civil war broke out last December.
The massacre of hundreds of civilians in the oil city of Bentiu has shocked the world, with the UN describing the incident as a game changer in the civil war.
Tonight, we put a spotlight on South Sudan, where the latest killings are said to be based on ethnicity and fueled by hate speeches on radio.
Our special coverage starts right now. Now, it is a massacre that has shocked the world, but no decisive action appears to be on its way yet.
Human rights organizations now say the death toll in South Sudan could have reached 10,000 following the latest killings in the oil town of Bentiu.
Pressure is also piling on the African Union to step in immediately and save its newest member. KTN's Betty Kialo begins our coverage tonight. Bodies spread along the streets. The smell of death and devastation is in the air. A new wave of violence in Bentiu State has left hundreds of civilians dead. It is reported that unarmed civilians who had sought refuge at a mosque, a church, and a local hospital became the latest victims of the mass killings today. They were killed along tribal lines and in cold blood. Before the attacks, some rebel commanders are said to have broadcasted hate messages on local radio, warning certain groups to leave town and even calling on men from one community to commit vengeful sexual violent acts against women from another community. At one hospital, men, women and children who refused to cheer the rebels were killed in the mass murder that has now been described as the most horrific and shocking in recent times. For those who survived the vicious attacks, life is unbearable. A dire humanitarian situation is calling for urgent attention. No water, no food. According to the United Nations, thousands of civilians are now streaming to the UN base in Bentiu, fearing that the killings will continue. The cramped base that holds 25,000 people has very little water and just one latrine for every 350 people. Further reports indicate that young men and even children are now increasingly joining the White Army, affiliated with the Nuer tribe, in a so-called revenge mission.
We are not brothers because of what they have done. Your brother will not kill you. They are killing even girls.
Some of these child soldiers or some of these young boys are very bitter because they lost some of their relatives. Fathers were killed, mothers were killed, and as a result, they decided to take up arms to carry out revenge on government forces.
What began as a political power struggle in South Sudan quickly assumed an ethnic dimension, pitting President Salva Kiir's Dinka tribe against former Vice President Riek Machar's Nuer people. Riek Machar has since refuted claims that his soldiers are behind the killings in Bentiu. The White House today released a statement urging Kiir and Machar to initiate dialogue to end the violence. Other countries are still weighing whether to send troops to the war-torn country. The fighting broke out in the world's youngest state late last year after President Kiir accused his former deputy Machar of plotting a coup. So far, thousands have been killed and more than 1 million displaced from their homes. Betty Kyalo, KTN.
Now tonight, the Kenyan senators just began debate on a bill to send troops to South Sudan to try and salvage the situation there.
And a big question tonight we are asking, should Kenya send troops to South Sudan? Should Kenya send troops to South Sudan?
Please send your comments to our Twitter handle at KTN Kenya, at Yvonne Okwara, and at Wilson_Mburu. Our special coverage tonight, we're using the hashtag Silent Massacre. So please use that. We'll be looking out for your tweets regarding that. The hashtag again is Silent Massacre. Use that when you're giving us your comments on this big question tonight on Twitter. 22155 is the SMS number. Start with a yes or no with a brief comment. We look forward to hearing your views on this issue tonight.
And now Kenyans, South Sudanese nationals in Kenya have joined the plea for swift action to save their country. Eldoret is one of the towns with a sizable South Sudanese population. Our reporter in the North Rift, Mercy Kandia, spoke to some of them and now joins us live from our Eldoret studios. Mercy, a very worrying situation even to those families that are very far away from home.
Yes, indeed, a very sad situation here in Eldoret. In fact, even as before we tried to talk to the South Sudan residents living here in Eldoret town, there are about 2,800 of them. And just early this year, on the month of February, we were at the Kakuma refugee camp where South Sudan refugees were trickling in their hundreds, even after the peace treaty was signed between the rebels and the government. It is indeed a sad state. So today we spoke to some of the residents, the church leaders and the local leaders in Eldoret town. There are about 2,800 of them in their numbers finding home here in Eldoret town, and they say they can only hope for their country, hope for the best, and also pray for the best for their country. Listen in.
Welcome.
Music is food for the soul. At Kapsoya area in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County, these children dance to the rhythm. They are from South Sudan, living in Kenya. Even though they seem happy, many here either have a relative in South Sudan or have lost someone they know in the ongoing conflict. But as the drums beat, one message they send in unison back to South Sudan.
Despite our diversity, we are one. So what we need is just peace to prevail in our country.
It's the holiday season, and at exactly 4 p.m. every evening, these children gather to practice the music and dance for the Sunday church service. There is where many get hope and get to pray for home that is South Sudan.
We are here in Eldoret and we think back what happened in South Sudan, but we felt that God is the one who will intervene and help my people and my wonderful country.
Even as they try and find a home in Kenya, the church leaders and the leaders of the South Sudan residents living in Eldoret know too well that home is where their heart is, being thankful to Kenya for hosting them, but at the same time calling on the world to intervene in South Sudan.
All the leaders should look into the situation of South Sudan and put it in a respectful way and listen to the various voices and bring them together without segregating one side.
And I want the international community to intervene and elevate our people.
Many voices, different tribes. One song, same dancing style, same goal, peace, achieved miles away from South Sudan.
We are in unity. There's no tribe, there's no Nuer, and there's no Dinga. We are just one. We are just one.
Hopefully soon, South Sudan will emulate. Masi Kandie, KTN, Kapsoya, Uasin Gishu County.
Now, of course, the situation is very worrying, as Mercy Kandia said, not just for South Sudanese in the country, all around the world, but for Africans on the continent as a whole. And tonight, to give us a perspective of what is happening in the country of South Sudan, we have His Excellency Majok Gwandong, who's the South Sudanese ambassador to Kenya. We thank you, Excellency, for joining us tonight. The UN officials are calling this a game changer since the happenings in December. Are you able to give us a situational report of what is going on in Bentiu at this moment?
Well, on the 14th of this month, rebel forces loyal to former Vice President Dr. Riek Machar attacked Bentiu town and overran it. And therefore, when they entered the town, they indiscriminately engaged in killing of the civilian, local and also people from other states and people from other countries, especially in northern Sudan.
The rebels have denied their involvement in this and continue to say this is a government ploy.
Well, how can they deny when they are the one in control? Before they entered Bentiu, the government forces were in control. Those civilian people were doing their business, and the government has the authority to protect the civilian. That's the government role everywhere.
Okay,
and
but
therefore these people were not killed when the rebel did not enter Bentiu.
Is the government in control in Bentiu? As you just said, the rebels are the ones in control, and so you believe they're responsible for this massacre that we've seen. Are you then saying the government of South Sudan is not in control in Bentiu?
At this moment, the government is not yet in control of Bentiu, although the government is working very hard to rescue the civilians who are being killed by the rebels. And therefore, as we speak now, it is the rebels who are in control. It is the rebels who are there. And you can see through the international media how many bodies are lying on the ground. And there is no way the government can come and can go and rescue this situation until the government get back to rescue the people in Bentiu town.
What plans are those that we can expect from the government to take back control of Bentiu and stop the killings?
Well, the first thing is that the government is strongly condemning the act that had happened in Bentiu. The government is urging the rebel to respect the human rights and humanitarian principle in accordance to Geneva Convention, that civilians are not involved in fighting. The third point is that the government does not consider what is happening in the country as an ethnic-based war. It is a war that has been precipitated or premeditated by the former vice president, who wanted to unseat the government through illegitimate means.
So you don't consider this to be ethnic-based?
I don't think so. This is not neither the view of the government or my personal view.
So what would you say is driving the tensions?
It is political struggle between rebels that wanted to unseat the government through illegitimate means.
All right, let's take a look at the ceasefire and the peace talks that we had. The ceasefire was declared in January. We know about the collapse of the second round of talks. Is there a return to the table formula? Do we hope to see both the government and the rebel side coming together back to the table to discuss a solution and a way out of the crisis?
Well, I can only speak for the government. The government from the top level, led by His Excellency the President, General Salva Kiir Mayardit, is totally committed to peaceful resolution of this conflict. That's why from the first week of December, when this incident occurred in Juba, the government came out very clearly that there can be no military solution except peaceful solution. Therefore, we are appealing as a government to IGAD, state and mediators and partners, that we need to come back to the table so that we have agreed on the mechanism of cessation of hostilities that we have agreed on the 23rd. The government has only been fighting in self-defense because the government is committed to peace and the government is respecting to the ceasefire that were agreed on the 23rd of January.
All right, many people and many observers who were there felt that the ceasefire was meant to rearm and regroup. What would you say to that?
Well, from the side of the government, we did not want the adjournment of talks from 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. We wanted a continuation of peace talk where both sides would be in a position to agree on a ceasefire, permanent ceasefire, free access of humanitarian assistance to all the country, and then after that begin the political talk, because we believe in peaceful resolution of this conflict, not through military means.
Okay. As you saw in the story that we just aired before our discussion, Mercy Kandia was speaking to South Sudanese nationals who are in Kenya. What assurances can you give them? And of course, the thousands of others that have fled. We're hearing of about 74,300 South Sudanese who fled the country, others who remain internally displaced. What assurances do you give them?
Well, first of all, I would like to praise the people of South Sudan who have gathered in Eldoret in order to air out their support for peace and unity of our people. Definitely from the beginning of this crisis, we have been working very hard at the embassy in Kenya, and we talk with our church leaders during Christmas, and we talk with elder and youth leaders to say that this thing should not divide the society and community in Kenya. And therefore, I'm very grateful to the church leaders and leaders of the communities here that have not taken any tribal lines. And therefore, I want to urge them and appeal to them that they should continue as one people, one community, that this issue would be resolved politically, and I believe through peaceful means it will be possible. Secondly, I want to assure our people here that this political struggle is not based on ethnicity. It is politically motivated by the rebels, but the government has the responsibility to protect the civilian in the country, and therefore the government is committed to peace.
All right, finally, the Kenyan Senate is tonight discussing and debating a bill to send troops to South Sudan, and that is the question that we're asking our viewers. What are your thoughts on Kenyans sending troops into South Sudan to help salvage the situation, and indeed international community coming in to provide support? Should we send troops to South Sudan?
Yeah, let me take this opportunity to really praise and appreciate the Kenyan leadership since previous president, Their Excellency Daniel Arap Moi, Mwai Kibaki, and the current president, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta. We want to appreciate the leadership and government and people of Kenya for their support of the people of South Sudan. And I believe that we are very grateful to Kenya's contribution, and therefore we accept the troops to come in because we wanted a mechanism for evaluation and assessment and monitoring of ceasefire.
Okay, all right. We thank you very much, Your Excellency, for coming in to join us this evening. We have been speaking with His Excellency Majok Gwandong, who's the South Sudanese ambassador to Kenya, talking about the crisis in South Sudan being called a game changer. We just want to give you a history of South Sudan and how we got to this point today. Now, since South Sudan gained independence in July 2011, there have been rumors of infighting over who would control SPLM. That is the former rebel group that now runs the country. It was the SPLA and then became the SPLM movement. But let's take a look at a timeline of events in this crisis, starting off in April 2013. Vice President Riek Machar was stripped of some of his powers and announced that he would challenge Salva Kiir, who's the president, for the control or the leadership of SPLM. And in effect saying that he wanted to challenge him for the presidency. A few months later, in July 2013, President Salva Kiir sacked not only his vice president, but the entire cabinet in what many observers termed as an apparent power struggle. Taking a look at about 6 months later, in December 2013, we all know of the heavy gunfire that broke out in the capital city in Juba in the presidential palace, and that happened on the 15th of December. State TV went off for a few hours. The city's airport was closed. The president later appeared on national television, calling it an attempted coup by his former vice president, Riek Machar. He assured the citizens that the government was in control. And we're told that during the 2 days of street battles, about 500 people were killed. We cannot confirm these numbers. The International Crisis Group confirmed clashes in half of South Sudan's 10 provinces, with 20,000 people sheltering in UN bases. Talks began in January 2014 this year. A ceasefire was signed in Ethiopia between the rebels and the government side. And as we spoke to the ambassador just a short while ago, many observers were feeling that the ceasefire was just meant to regroup and rearm. The second round of ceasefire talks, or rather the peace talks, collapsed and didn't carry on. Violence continued even after the ceasefire was signed. And then, of course, we bring ourselves to this month. That's April 2014. Now, on the 20th, more than 200 civilians were massacred during the capture of Bentiu. A mosque, a hospital, and a church were attacked. The civilians had gone there seeking refuge from the infighting. This is what the UN official is calling a game changer. Many people fearing that this could go the Rwanda way, especially celebrating 20 years of the Rwanda genocide now. I'd like to give you some numbers of the South Sudan crisis. Let's take a look at just the toll this is having on the country. Now, the International Crisis Group reported that on the 9th of January, up to an estimated 10,000 people are estimated to have died since this crisis began. Obviously, those are not numbers, again, we can confirm. The number of internally displaced persons, 413,000. 66,500 are in UN bases. And about 74,300 are said to have fled the country. Some of them are in Kenya and, of course, the other neighbors surrounding South Sudan. Now, this is something interesting that came out just this month. It's from a report by UNICEF that is warning that this conflict in South Sudan is triggering a serious risk of famine. 50,000 children are said to be at risk if immediate action is not taken. And of course, these are the numbers, and this is the crisis that we're focusing on in South Sudan. Now, we would also like to get some more perspective on this. And online, I understand we've got the Foreign Affairs Minister, Barnabas Mariel Benjamin, who's joining us via phone tonight. Foreign Affairs Minister, we thank you for joining us tonight. Now, we're hearing of this being a game changer. We've just spoken to the ambassador here. It seems that you are not in control, or the government is not in control of Bentiu. When do we hope to see the government take control and stop the massacre?
First of all, South Sudan is a very big country, as you know. It's bigger than the size of France, with about 10 states. Out of those 10 states, we have over 8 of those states are under full control of the government. They are calm. There is no fighting. Now, in the unity state, that's where rebels have violated the cessation of hostilities, and they attacked the town of Bentiu. And you have seen the sickening and the heinous crimes they have committed by actually massacring innocent civilians, as you can see in the post, the church, and also in the hospital. That is really an abominable crime. But I can show you the government better control of other areas, but we will contain the situation. And our message is to the IGAD countries who are seeing the peace process. Here are the rebels led by Dr. Riek Machar, the former vice president. He is actually violating the station of hostility that IGAD has put including the president, Prime Minister of as well as the other leaders of the IGAD countries, from IGAD going to Uganda, Museveni, and everybody else. So I can assure you the government mandate, this is an elected democratic government by the people of South Sudan. It is our constitutional right of the government to protect its citizens. But here we are, the rebels suddenly attacked bases in the presence of even unmissed forces in the area. So the government is doing all its effort to protect its citizens, and that is the duty of the government.
All right, thank you. A final question to you tonight. People are talking about sending in troops. What are your thoughts on that, particularly in your docket of foreign affairs? The Kenyan Senate is debating this issue at the moment. The international community, do you feel abandoned by the international community?
We still feel that the international community should do more about it. Because South Sudan today is a member of the family of nations, a member of the African Union, is a member of the country, a member of the East African community, a member of the United Nations, and we actually thank the people of Kenya, both the parliament, the president, for the concerns that they have raised in discussing the issue of sending troops to the Republic of South Sudan. We are a sovereign state, and according to international law, that we will welcome the Kenyan forces because they will be doing what is good for humanity and what is good for our region. That has been done in Somalia. You have got Kenyan troops, Ugandan troops. In Eastern Congo, you have the South African troops, the Tanzanian troops, the Malawian troops, and all of it. And you can have in so many other places where the regional, because anything that goes on in South Sudan will definitely make an impact onto the East African community. So really, the Republic of South Sudan and the government of South Sudan will welcome and will work together to see that that possibility of sending troops. We would urge the Kenyan Parliament. That's what a brother and a sister can do to a brother and a sister. And I believe this is what...
Okay. All right. We thank you. We thank you very much. We apologize for the poor quality and sound of that phone call. We have been speaking to Foreign Affairs Minister South Sudan, Barnabas Mariel Benjamin, discussing the crisis in South Sudan. And remember, we're inviting your comments on this. Our social media hashtag tonight is Silent Massacre. Let's take a look at what some of you are saying on social media.
During the past few days, Bentiu was the scene of severe violence, very targeted, deliberate violence that struck individuals of certain identities.
We'll, of course, continue to update you on the crisis in South Sudan, and you can join that conversation on social media. On Twitter, the hashtag is Silent Massacre. Let's move away from the crisis in South Sudan to the security situation in Kenya. The Nairobi County Police Commander Benson Kibue has said the police operations will move from estate to flush out those still bearing illegal arms after the expiry of the president's amnesty. Kibue was speaking after meeting officers commanding Nairobi's police stations to assess the progress of security operations aimed at weeding out illegal immigrants and criminal elements.
What we are saying is that as the operation is continuing within Nairobi, we are not specifically dealing with this area. We'll be out to ensure that we sanitize all the estates within Nairobi. So Kenyans living here in Nairobi, please, with the motto of Nyumba Kumi, coordinate with us, security officers. We have given out our contacts. 999 Control Center based at Jago House.
Now, as you can already see on your screens, the breaking news we have, the news we have just in is that a vehicle has exploded near the Pangani police station. We'll, of course, keep you up to date as we continue to monitor the situation in Pangani. Right now, we want to hand you over to Jeff Koinange. Remember, Jeff Koinange Live is up next immediately after the bulletin. Jeff, a very good evening to you. What do you have for us tonight?
That's right, Wilson. We are live in the heart of Eastleigh, and according to Google Maps here, it tells me I'm on the corner of General Waroinga Street and First Avenue. That's where we are, and that's where JKL will be coming to you in about 45 minutes or so. But I have a bit of breaking news, Wilson. We're hearing that at Pangani police station, there's been an explosion. Apparently a car was driving into the yard and it exploded. And Pangani police station, by the way, is 2 kilometers about north of where I am right now. It's the closest police station to this very area. Why are we here? Well, we know the story. About 20 days ago, a crackdown began in this area. It started right here in this area. And so far in the last 20 days, about 5,000 people have been arrested. According to statistics, many of them have been processed. 190 have been deported back to Somalia. Many are still at Kasarani, still being processed. Others have been sent to refugee camps in Dadaab and Kakuma. And the crackdown continues. We're going to be talking live with the Kamkunji Member of Parliament, Yusuf Hassan, very shortly. And also, we've invited Police Inspector General David Kimayo to be here on the show. We hope he'll show up. In the meantime, let me speak to a young business community leader. His name is Ahmed Mohammed. He is the Secretary General of the Eastleigh Business Community. Ahmed, welcome to KTN Prime.
Thank you very much.
Look, we've been here a few hours now, and look, it seems pretty calm. I must say, it looks pretty calm here.
Yeah, it is calm. There's nothing happening in Eastleigh. The only thing that's happening in Eastleigh right now is the police crackdown and the police operations.
Okay, what's the general mood, Ahmed? Okay, we see a massive police presence up and down these streets, and I'm sure up and down. What's the mood like?
The mood is jittery. The mood is a bit jittery. People are, anxious. People are jittery about this police crackdown and these police operations. There was virtually no business in the last 3 weeks in Eastleigh. 75% of businesses are down, and we are feeling the pinch now.
What are people saying right now? Are they for the crackdown? Are they against it? Is it back and forth? What are they saying?
When it first started, the community wanted the police to do their job. Everyone is, concerned about the security of Eastleigh, but it has become painful now. It has become Somali businesses and Somali community are between a rock and a hard place. When an explosion happens in Eastleigh, it's the businesses and the Somali community that suffers most.
Yeah. Is there anger? I mean, there's a whole bunch of people here. I guess they've seen the lights and they know we're here live, and it's the first time that people have come here live at this, to do a show like this. But are people angry in general?
People are angry with the way the operation is being done. They're not angry at the security operation, but they're angry at how it is being effected. And therefore, as business leader, what we wanted the government to do is to change tact, to do intelligence-based operations. If they're aware of any certain things happening in a certain apartment, they should go there, do their work, and get out.
Bottom line, Ahmed, solutions to this place. I mean, this is going to go on for a while.
Yeah.
What's the best case scenario moving forward?
The best case scenario is for the police, the government, the authorities, the political leaders, religious leaders, the youth, the women to come together and think of a forward strategy. The only solution to this problem is if we listen to each other. At the moment, it seems like only the authorities and the government is doing their own things. They need to involve the community, the political leaders, and the youth and the women in order for us to move forward. Yeah.
At the end of the day, can life come back to normal in Eastleigh? Because you say 75% of business has been affected. Is it going to come back to normal? Are people optimistic, or do they think the crackdown will continue?
We hope so. Imagine, Jeff, truckloads of police officers in full combat gear down Moy Avenue. Will you be there? You won't be able to get there. So that's what's happening. That's the scenario in Eastleigh. Every day, there's trucks of police around, in red berets, in full combat gear. So, and you look around, you think, even if the most hardened business person will think of relocating their business somewhere. We have seen people leaving Eastleigh, relocated to other parts of Nairobi and of the country. And Eastleigh, as you know, is the hub of Nairobi. 30% of businesses, 30% of the revenue in Nairobi County comes from Eastleigh.
Yeah.
It's a very important business hub, and
Sure.
we want it to be like that, and even better.
Are you all carrying IDs right now? Does everyone have to carry their ID?
Of course, you'll have to carry your ID everywhere you go, and that's the worrying part.
Can I tell you something, Ahmed? I forgot my ID.
Well, don't worry, Jeffrey. You don't look like a Somali. You know, it's.
I thought I looked a bit Somali, Ahmed. No.
So it's
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
balancing operation.
Good luck going forward, Ahmed.
Thank you.
All the best. Yeah, thank you. That's Ahmed Mohammed. He is a Secretary General of the Eastleigh business community. Again, that breaking news, what I told you at the top of the show, Wilson, is that there's been an explosion at Pangani police station. The OCPD Baraza has told us that a vehicle was driving on the wrong side of the road. It was actually heading towards this location. It was stopped by the police and it exploded. There may be casualties. We can't confirm how many so far. We've sent a crew directly there right now. By the time probably JKL starts, we'll have more information. But that's what's happening right now in Eastleigh. We are on the corner of General Waroinge Street and First Avenue. JKL will be starting in about half an hour or so. You can tweet us at Koinange Jeff is my hashtag, is my Twitter handle. The hashtag is JKL. Also, you can call in 0712-957-117. Let's all talk. That's what it's all about. We've got to talk to the business community leaders, and hopefully the Inspector General of Police shows up. We'll really have a conversation. In the meantime, let's toss it back to you in the studio and Wilson Burr.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff. Of course, we'll be expecting an update from Jeff on what's going on in Eastleigh. We have just been told that there's an explosion. A car has just exploded just near the Pangani police station. We'll be expecting reports on what is going on in Eastleigh. But let's have a review of our big question tonight.
That's right. Tonight, the Kenyan Senate has just begun debate on a bill to send troops to South Sudan. This is following the massacre in Bentiu that took place this week, and of course some very horrific pictures if you've managed to see some of those on social media. And so we're asking you tonight whether Kenya should send her troops to South Sudan.
Well, you can reach us on SMS number 22155, or you can get us on our Twitter handles at Yvonne Okwara, at Wilson_Mburu. Remember, the hashtag is Silent Massacre. That is the hashtag we are using tonight.
Sir Charles Kenya says no, Kenya is facing serious internal security challenges which need attention. Thank you very much for sending in your tweets. Keep them coming in while we try to make sure that we are our brother's keeper tonight. Let's take a short break.
Yep. Take a short break now, but don't you go away. We have much more after that. Welcome back. We're glad you're watching KTN Prime.
Now, every year, thousands turn up to take part in the annual Matahatran. But have you ever wondered who benefits from these efforts? KTN's Wilkista Nyabwa spent the morning in theatre with one of the beneficiaries and reports that while a few benefit, there are many more children with heart defects for whom treatment is out of reach.
The beep of the machine pierces the silence in the room. Only the most important words are spoken here. The attention of each and every individual in this room is trained on the patient lying on the bed. A child 5 years and 4 months old. Jasmine Nduta fell ill for the first time when she was just a day old. She was treated for various illnesses for the first 3 months of her life. But when her illness persisted, doctors gave her parents the startling diagnosis. She had been born with a hole between the two chambers of her heart.
Tukampeleka huko, akaangaliwa na kabisa tukaona kweli alikuwa na shida ya roho. Kulikuwa na shimo kwa roho yake. Ile ilikuwa 0.8 centimeters.
Cardiologists advised Anne to wait and see whether the hole would close with time. It didn't, and the advice of doctors changed.
Looking at it very often, the cardiologist will be able to tell whether it's the type that can close or the type that may not close. It is at this point the cardiologist may actually tell the parents, let us wait until the child is school-going age. If by that time it hasn't closed, then it is more advisable to close it because it can bring problems later on in life.
Jasmine would have to undergo open heart surgery. Open heart surgery is any surgery where the chest is cut open. Muscles in the area are divided so that the surgeon can reach the heart. While the surgeon works on the heart-lung machine sends oxygen-rich blood to the brain and other organs. It is a delicate operation, one that puts every member of the surgical team on his or her toes. And yet, vital though this operation is, hundreds of children born with congenital heart diseases can't access treatment. 8 out of every group of 1,000 children will be born with a heart defect. The cost of diagnosis aside, the operation alone costs just under $1 million shillings. It is a cost Anne could never have shouldered without the infusion of funds raised during the Mata Heart Run. Yet without it, Jasmine and many others like her are likely to face several complications as adults.
In the case of some of these defects, especially involving the lower chambers, it can give you what we call pulmonary hypertension, meaning when blood goes into the lungs, when you get pulmonary hypertension, the blood vessels become thick. And when they become thick, you don't get proper oxygen transfer.
After 3 nerve-wracking hours, the Holy Sealed and the surgery is over, and doctors prepare to wheel Jasmine to the recovery room. If all goes well, in 7 days she will go home with a new lease of life. It may not seem like it now, but Jasmine's mother hopes that following the surgery, Jasmine will recover to take part in the annual Heart Run to help other children just like her. Wilkista Nyabwa, KTN in Nairobi.
If legend was to be believed, the advent of the newer, faster technology should have rendered the Postal Corporation of Kenya moribund and useless. But the reality is anything but that.
We're not going to die any one time.
To start with, the corporation, which is currently implementing a 3-year strategic plan seeking to grow its revenues from the current 3.6 billion to 9 billion shillings by 2016, convinced all its competitors to utilize its vast network to deliver their products throughout the country.
We have partnered with almost all of them now. Whatever comes from outside the country, through them. Whatever comes from outside the country, through us, all that is Kenyan. And so we take it through our system, and we're able to deliver to Kenyans. And I think everybody's happy.
The company is also diversifying from postage duties to roll out agency services to various government departments. The corporation is currently running the Huduma Centers, which is a one-stop shop to access and pay for government services electronically. The Kenya Revenue Authority has also appointed the corporation to collect fees accruing from stamp duty on property deals, collect fees for driving licenses, and issue renewal stickers. And from July, the corporation will collect payments for the National Social Security Fund.
We have gone out, we have sold ourselves. We have also said that this network is available for any investor who wants to reach their customers.
All this saw the Postal Corporation of Kenya's revenues jump 12.5% from 3.2 billion to 3.6 billion shillings in the 2012-2013 financial year, allowing the firm to post a modest after-tax profit of 173 million shillings. And the corporation says this profit will allow it to make a historic payment to the National Treasury.
Our accounts have just been audited. We are waiting for audited accounts, and we are going to give the Treasury, for the first time in history, symbolically, a dividend.
It would seem the Postal Corporation of Kenya has become the proverbial phoenix, rising from the ashes of inefficiency to become a provider of crucial services in a fast-paced and technologically advanced Kenya. Adelaide Chongole, KTN Business.
Rising from the ashes of inefficiency.
Also, the government says it is in talks with commercial banks to lower the remittance fees. Now, this comes as a report by the Overseas Development Institute showed that Kenyans pay an average of 12% the value of money they're sending in fees. Kenyans in diaspora sent home 103.2 billion shillings in remittances in the year 2012, with growing fear that the amount could have been much higher if the costs were lowered. Diaspora remittances provides for large proportions of investable funds that is used for development purposes. Speaking to Kenyans living in and working in Qatar, President Uhuru Kenyatta said it was time banks worked with other countries where Kenyans are employed to lower the cost of remittance. The president is in Qatar on a 3-day visit. Orange Telcom is seeking to cut its reliance on voice revenue by strengthening its data offering. The telecommunications operator has invested 1.4 billion shillings over the last 2 years, switching its copper infrastructure to the proper fiber optic cable as it strives to connect more buildings in the country. This comes as Orange seeks to grow the share of the growing data market. And here is Charles Gitonga with more of that report.
Necessity, they say, is the mother of all invention. For Orange Telcom, the saying has deep meaning as the operator has been forced to innovate to deal with the rising cases of vandalism. The firm has invested 1.4 billion shillings since 2012, upgrading its copper network to fiber optic that has come with an added advantage. Orange will connect 200 buildings in the capital city to its fiber optic infrastructure by the end of this year, bringing the total number of buildings connected to the network in the country to 700. Nairobi constitutes 70% of the operator's data market, and the new infrastructure is seen as a roadmap to profitability.
Our strategy is corporate data for companies and SME, and of course data residential through GSM.
Further into efforts to cut costs, Orange will be pursuing the Communication Authority of Kenya, seeking to lure the regulator towards sharing the fiber optic network infrastructure by the industry players. This will reduce the expenses each operator incurs in installations and upgrade of infrastructure.
This is the great. First one will have less cost, better services, and we could focus in value services and not to lay out fiber and copper.
In the second quarter of last year, Orange Telcom's fixed internet subscriptions grew by 5%, placing it fourth behind Wananchi, Liquid Telcom and Access Kenya with a market share of 11.7%. Charles Gitonga, KTN Business.
All unregistered contractors in the country have been put on notice by the National Construction Authority. This follows the passing of a deadline for all contractors in the country to register with the authority. So far, only 20,000 contractors ended up in the authority's database. Here is Philip Keitani with the rest of that report.
Scenes such as these have characterized the local construction industry in the recent past, largely blamed on unqualified construction companies. In the last couple of years, Kenya has seen a number of buildings collapse. Some of these include a building in Kisii which collapsed in January 2009, one in Kiambu in October 2009, and the infamous Kehonge building on River Road, which collapsed on the 26th January 2006. This has resulted in loss of lives as well as stalled development, forcing the government to take drastic measures instituting statutory requirements developers will have to meet before they are allowed to operate. It is on this basis that the National Construction Authority has come up with a raft of regulations that are expected to ensure that all players in the industry are well qualified and operates within the same rules. So far, the authority has registered 20,000 constructors that it says will be allowed to conduct construction jobs within the country. The rules will be subjected to foreign contractors operating in the country as the authority seeks to weed out contractors without necessary qualifications to carry out projects. The authority says all letters of registration issued on or before December 31st, 2013 will no longer be valid from next month, with contractors expected to get new registration. Construction companies found to be contravening the regulations risk imprisonment or fine not exceeding 1 million shillings. Philip Ketan, KTN Business.
That's right, Bonnie. We are live on the corner of General Waroinga Street and First Avenue in Eastleigh. Security very, very tight here. I told you about an incident less than 30 minutes ago where a vehicle driven by an individual and 4 others in the car was driving down the wrong way, apparently the wrong way. The police stopped it. They got into the vehicle and were arresting, if you will, the occupants. They drove it to Pangani police station, which is about 2 kilometers from where we are. As it entered the Pangani police station compound, the vehicle exploded. We understand there are casualties. There could be several of the occupants of the vehicles dead in their car. There's some footage. We sent our camera crew to go film what's there. You can see the footage right now. Some of it very, very graphic. And we're trying to get more information about the casualties. So far, this is what I guess Eastleigh is all about. You just never know. And with us being out here, obviously, some kind of target. People see the lights here and they're attracted to it, if you will. But I can assure you, we are safe. A lot of police out here, administration police and regular police out here. In fact, we are expecting the Inspector General of Police to be one of my guests on JKL. Also expecting Member of Parliament for Kamkunji, Yusuf Hassan, and former Deputy Speaker Farah Malim as well. So hopefully they'll all make it. We're here. And if we get any more information about that incident of that car bomb exploding inside the Pangani police station compound, we'll bring it to you. JKL will begin in another 10 minutes or so. Bonnie Atunya, back to you.
Yes.
Ukiwa pale juu tunachukua poa sana.
Everybody in here, Kamba. Wait. Out. Amejulikana mwenyewe? Ndiye anasema zake.